Evening, folks. I'm sitting here and I'm drinking a couple of beers. I did a couple of beer reviews, and I'm going through and I'm stealing memes off the internet because it's the internet, and I prefer to think of myself as an independent meme farmer. But there's a couple of video clips. In the video clips, it's what I would call regular, normal Americans, the patriotic guys, the guys that fly the American flag. And they're beating the tar out of some Antifa pussies. I don't think it's particularly a bad thing. It's not a good thing. But it is an example of what's going wrong here. There is so much tunnel vision, there are so many blinders put on that people can't get out of. I was watching Timcast, and he has that guy, I think his name is Ian, that sits in. The guy's a fucking moron. There's a reason there are no windows in that studio. It's so it keeps him from licking them. They were doing the whole Joe Biden said, well, if I disagreed with Kamala, I would, just fake an illness and retire. Well, that's not what he said. And then he tries to justify it by, well, what I think he meant was. That's the problem. Do you see the blinders? Do you see the tunnel vision? He's so deeply inured into whatever his ideology and philosophy is that he can't see outside the box. Now, I rag on Tim all the time for exactly the same thing. Tim gets right to the wall but never opens the fucking door. So I give him the benefit of the doubt. He's making money now. He's got a studio, which is a nice studio, by the way. I wish I had one. But if you're going to be a journalist, and I do not claim to be a journalist, I'm just a guy who drinks beer and shitposts on the internet. You can only protect your brand so far. And then at some point, I'm sorry, that was rude. I won't do that again. And then at some point, you have to say, well, I'm going to extrapolate from here. It's not why we're here. So I'm watching the morons from Antifa getting their asses kicked by the patriotic rocket scientists. Don't get me wrong, I like the Patriot guys. They're good people. They love America. They want to bring America back to what America was. But they're playing in to the problem. We're divided. So, I can't prove it. I'm just going to say that I have seen multiple instances posted around the internet from people who I consider reliable of flyers saying, come on down and we'll pay you $15 an hour to be a protester. And there's lots of chatter on how Antifa gets funded, including by our favorite Hungarian Nazi. And, I always go back to it's deeds, not words. You can't judge people by what they say. You have to judge them by what they do. So the Antifa punks are there to rile it up. But the reason they're there to rile it up, the reason they start all this shit, the reason we're having these problems is because they want the country divided. They want us in separate camps. Now, the guy that sits in on the Tim shows, I think his name is Ian, I don't know. It doesn't really make a fucking difference one way or the other. I'm sure he's probably a nice enough guy, and the reason he got the job is probably because he's one of Tim's friends from back in the skateboard days. But he would look at this tape and literally say, how dare those people attack the peaceful protesters who are wearing riot gear. Let me extrapolate this way. If you're walking around with a pistol on your hip, I am not assuming that you are going out to commit felonies. I assume that if you're wearing a pistol on your hip, A, you like guns, well, it's America and you're allowed to. And B, you're an honest citizen, and I really don't have much to worry about from you. I know this because I know a lot of guys that walk around with guns on their hips every day. I'm not talking about police, I'm just talking regular you and me Joe kind of guys. That being said, if you walked into Walmart in full tech gear, I'm going to look at you a little askance because why are you wearing body armor and a helmet and gloves and shit? I'm not saying you can't. Go for it. What do I care? But I have to figure if you're walking in and you're fully loaded, what the fuck? Maybe you're just going out to shoot. Then why do you have your helmet on? And why do you have your plate carrier on? And why do you, if you're just buying ammo, you don't walk in dressed to the nines. Just saying. If you're going to go to a peaceful protest, and you have no plans to incite any violence, especially from the people who have 50,000 member rallies where there is no violence. You don't see violence at Trump rallies. You don't see violence anywhere where most... I've been to 1,000,001 concerts. You know how often I see violence? Sporadically and rarely. If you show up in riot gear for a peaceful protest, I am willing to assume that you don't think it's going to be very peaceful. So I'm also going to assume, with the long history of the Antifa violence, that you're there to start shit. It's completely okay, because I'm from the old school. If you... What's the Kyle Rittenhouse mean? Fuck around, find out? Fuck around, find out. That's not the problem. The problem is we're falling for the bait. And not me personally, but the country as a whole is falling for the division. They want to split. They want us at each other's throats. It's called divide and conquer. It's one of the oldest fucking game plans ever. And we're falling for it. Is it because we sent these kids to these indoctrination camps we call public schools, colleges, and so this is what they were spoon-fed? Entirely possible, and actually probable at this point. The flip side of it is, how many of these kids that are there wind up getting their asses kicked because they have the speculation, take it for what it's worth. What I hear, chatter. They mobilize the well-meaning. These dopey kids that they indoctrinated in school. They mobilize them. They get them going. And then they drop the agitators in. So, if there's 25 kids, they throw an agitator in there, and the agitator starts shit, he backs out, and then the 25 kids have to fucking deal with it. You wind up with these fucking news clips that flood the media, that continue to feed the cycle. Now remember, the mainstream media is nothing more than a ministry of propaganda at this point. We are literally living in Soviet times news-wise. Remember, the Soviets had 2 stations. They had 2 differing viewpoints. They had TASS and Pravda. They had Truth and Voice, both of which were approved by the Ministry of Information because they were the Ministry of Information, and if you said anything that was outside of those lines, well, there's always work in Siberia. All I'm saying is, don't bite. That might be a big, fat, juicy worm wiggling on the hook. It's on a hook. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if this is applicable. But after you get done stamping out these little fuckers, and hopefully somebody has some film of them inciting, what you need to do is enact a citizen's arrest. You can still do that as far as I know. Again, not a lawyer, not giving legal advice here. But if you catch somebody in the commission of a crime, I believe you're allowed to detain them until the police show up. So when you're busy stomping these kids, what you need to do, and it's super easy. Let's face it, none of these kids can take a punch. They all fold like a fucking house of cards. Well, you take them back over there and you fucking zip tie them and you call the police and say, hey, this guy did this. We're holding him for you. You need to come get him. And when his buddies come to get him, aiding and abetting, no? Putting it out there. The problem is we're playing their game, and their game is anarchy and without rule of law, and so they're getting away with this shit continuously. We have to stop dividing the country, and the best way to stop dividing the country is to catch the people perpetrating the division and set them off to the side. Now, I know in Portland this wouldn't work, but in Texas, kid would be lucky if he wasn't fucking lynched before he got to the goddamn courthouse. It's not the right answer either. We have to stop people from pulling this shit. Now, if Trump had half a brain in his fucking head, he wouldn't be screaming, we need to get rid of 230. No, what he should be screaming is, we need to enforce 230. Take these fuckers to task. You're not a platform, you're a publisher now. You've been editing. You're open for libel. Sue them. I don't know, folks. I try. I want my fucking country back. And after we get my country back, our country back, we retake Canada. Okay? Because I believe if we have strong neighbors on our 2 borders, we have less problems. Canada first, then Mexico. And Mexico is a completely different fucking set of issues. But Canada's easy. Canada's like America light. We can take them back. Make Canada good again. I don't know, man. You got an answer? Hit me up, throw it in there. But we have to, at some point, stop the division in this fucking country. And the best way to do it right off the bat is going to be to neuter the social media propaganda machine, because nobody watches the news anymore. Even the news knows nobody watches the news anymore. And that's why Twitter and Facebook and YouTube have these big censorship programs. If we get them to abide by the rules, we can stop the amount of programming they do to these 20-year-old kids that have no idea how well they have it. Just saying. My 2 cents. Good night, folks. Catch you on the next one. Again, you got anything, hit me up. Let me know, because this is one of those things that I try to get my mind around. And Skull.